We're going to be starting in a minute. We've been having a lot of fun, great conversation
We're going
leading
to be
into the
starting in a
program.
minute.
So, welcome. Welcome to Medical Mondays with Dr. O. And to all our fathers on the platform, happy Father's Day. May you continue to celebrate the goodness of God, and may your children continue to celebrate you. We appreciate you, all our men. We appreciate what you stand for. We are proud of you. It so happens also that the month of June is Men's Health Month. And last week we started focusing on our men. We will continue to do that for the rest of the month because it is well deserved. We focus a lot on women and children and, leave the heads of the family on the sidelines. And it so happens that it is our men that don't go to see doctors or, pay attention to themselves or take care of themselves. African men love to work and love to provide for the family, and we appreciate it very much. But they can only continue to do that when they have health. Without good health, not much can be done anywhere by anyone. So tonight, we have one of our amazing child of the soil, or son of the soil, is what I should say, Dr. Okey Enyia, who is a nationally recognized health policy executive, government affairs strategist, and scholar activist with over 15 years of experience driving equity at the intersection of public health, legislation, and systems change. Most recently, he served as Associate Vice President for Federal Government Relations at the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, where he crafted bipartisan, bicameral policy solutions that mobilized over 11,000 grassroots advocacy actions and safeguarded healthcare access for marginalized populations. Dr. Enyia is the founder and CEO of Enyia Strategies LLC, a mission-driven consulting firm where purpose meets policy. He is the author of Indisputable. Please get online to check that out. Indisputable, which is the story of a favored son and the forthcoming John Henry Health Equity Playbook, a transformative multi-year framework and advancing Black men's health, economic mobility, and community well-being. His peer-reviewed research has been published in leading journals, including Health Affairs, Public Health Reports, Preventing Chronic Disease, American Journal of Men's Health, Journal of the National Medical Association, and the Sphinx magazine. He combines academic rigor with policy experience to influence real-world outcomes at scale. Holding a doctorate in health policy from the George Washington University, Dr. Enyia brings strategic vision, legislative acumen, and a deep commitment to systemic change, ensuring that health equity is not just a goal, but a guarantee. Aren't we blessed to have Dr. Enyia tonight as a speaker for tonight to enlighten us and to enrich us? Men, put on your seatbelts. Women, fasten close behind so that you can assist to motivate our men to better health. So without much ado, Dr. Enyia, the floor is yours, and welcome to Medical Mondays with Dr. O.
Thank you, Dr. O, and let me greet my family in both Igbo and Yoruba, Kedu, and Bao,
Odema,
Baoni.
that Daniel. Thank you.
So thank you so much. I'm honored to have this opportunity to share a little bit about my work, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. It's going to be interesting to hear your thoughts and your questions. It's always interesting to hear where people land in the men's health space, what they think about when they think about men's health. And I like the fact that you brought up um, women's health because, in fact, the way that I look at this, um, let me advance my screen here. I believe in solidarity. I believe in solidarity, and our health is our wealth. And this is not a zero-sum game. This is not an either or. This is both and. We want to be able to have gender equity when we're talking about advancing the health and well-being of people in general, but definitely Black and Brown patients. And so it's important uh, to have the right narrative so that it's not coming from a place of exclusion, right? We're not trying to exclude women's health. We're not trying to diminish, other types of health across the spectrum. But because of the disparities that I'm going to walk through this evening, hopefully it'll be made more clear why it is going to be important to really center the health and well-being of Black men and boys. So to set the context, my study was the first of its kind to examine the Affordable Care Act and its impact on access to care for Black men. My study found were there were three key findings. One was that uh, the ACA accomplished one of its key goals of decreasing the proportions of uninsured people since the bill actually was implemented in 2014. My study was a pre and post study. So it traced data from 2011 to 2019, with 2014 being a key timestamp to assess and evaluate the extent to which the ACA did accomplish its goals of increasing insurance coverage for people um, uh, under the ACA. Now, my particular study focused on men. And what I found, and this wasn't surprising, was that Black men were 30% more likely to be uninsured compared to white men. As well, Black men were 25% less likely to have a usual source of care or to have a healthcare provider to go to compared to white men from 2014 to 2019. And so that just to I share that to set the context from a positive perspective, but also this is personal. My dad and three of my uncles are prostate cancer survivors. My dad and three of my uncles are prostate cancer survivors. And so of course I'm doing all that I can to take care of myself in terms of vitamin D and exercise and lifestyle and and diet, doing those things, getting my annual checkup. I'm blessed to have a wife uh, who who has been very helpful in supporting my overall self-care regimen. And there have been studies that I found, and this has been well established um, that men that are married tend to live longer and tend to be healthier. And we can talk about that later, but that is a real thing. So I set that context to share this article that came out on June 5th in Health Affairs. It put a finer points and a focus um, on Medicaid and its impacts on the health and well-being of Black men and boys. So I framed it as given the current debates in Congress, um, what impact would the proposed $880 billion cuts to Medicaid have on the health and well-being of Black men? Right. So, and not to assume that everyone knows what Medicaid is, I did at least want to share a little bit more content to ensure that that everyone is on the same page in terms of what Medicaid actually is. It's a joint federal and state program that helps to provide free and low cost health coverage to low income individuals, including children, pregnant women, and other people with disabilities, as well as those um, uh, um, who are elders. Now, where things are with the one big beautiful bill, as I'm sure you all probably are tracking, the Medicaid conversation is taking place as we speak, and it is in the Senate right now. And so there's a lot of lobbying that is taking place um, to protect Medicaid. One of the issue areas that is it seems to be more likely to get across the finish line is the work reporting requirements, which I won't necessarily get too much into that right now, but what the work reporting requirements are is, in my assessment, and others who lean left and or understand what this policy is, the work requirements will make it more difficult for people to stay enrolled, because it's going to ask people to re-enroll every 6 months as opposed to once a year. They're going to they're adding more barriers to staying on Medicaid, basically. And so that looks like that as of today, that looks like that provision might get through, but um, there's a lot of meetings taking place as we speak. And so we'll see where things land in terms of what ultimately gets across the finish line. Let's see. So I kind of talked about the health disparities and Medicaid's role and outcomes. I won't go too much into detail there. So to give you some data, so we know that, and this has been the case for several decades. Black men have the shortest life expectancy than almost any other racial group in the United States. That has been the case for decades. Now, people, um, the narrative out there is that, one, yes, Black men are less likely to go to the doctor for various reasons, whether it's pride, ego, lack of access to care, um, lack of affordability, racism, etc. So all of those things shape the extent to which um, men live as long as they can. I'll also, this also gets into the extent to which the healthcare delivery system is structured to provide um, opportunities for men to make it easier for them to go see a healthcare provider. Very early on, the way that the healthcare system is structured is to foster and facilitate, girls' health and women's health, in terms of pap smears and, like, you know, and the menstrual cycle, and just this, there's there, there's a lot more support there, um, compared to men, and so again, those factors are also playing into health outcomes. Yeah. We know, again, higher chronic disease. Men in general, and Black men in particular, we are at the bottom of almost every health condition, in terms of uh, issues, whether it's heart disease, cancer, etc. For prostate cancer, 1 in 5 um, men will get cancer in a lifetime, and then um, for those who have a family history of prostate cancer, it's 1 in 4. So in fact, I was just having a conversation with a colleague this afternoon he's an MD PhD um, who is trying to get his free information out about prostate cancer um, because there's so much support out there, but it's a matter of how do we educate our communities and make it more conducive or easier to meet men where they are to ensure that they can get the best possible treatment as early as possible. We know Joe Biden was most recently um, diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer, and we could talk about the guidelines and that whole thing. But so COVID, again, worse off, right? Policy gaps. Black men, we navigate the dichotomy of, on one hand, being hyper visible in a criminal injustice system, but invisible when it comes to our health and well-being on policy and research agendas. So I'm trying to address that gap in my forthcoming playbook, which at a high level is designed to help people shape policy at the local, state, and federal levels. So this slide just basically discusses ways in which we can be intentional about centering Black men in health policy. It's important to disaggregate data. It's important to take a culturally resonant approach to listening to the voices of Black men. And we also want to look at structural inequities, right? I say all the time that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so it's a part of the goal with the playbook is to ensure that I can equip and empower people to see themselves as part of the solution. I touched on the structural barriers. As of today, there are 10 states in the U.S. that have yet to expand Medicaid. We know that the majority of Black people in the U.S. live in the South, and it's been well established that most of our um, uh, m- more severe health disparities are in the South. Um, there's also a cost to men's health disparities. There's my colleagues, over the past uh, 10, 15, 20 years have calculated billions of dollars in lost productivity, and costs, both direct and indirect, because of not, being able to, or not being willing to address the men's health disparities in a way that is nuanced and meaningful. So I touched on the 10 non-expansion states, where most Black people live in the South. There's what's called the coverage gap, where one might be making too much money to be on Medicaid, but then not making enough. And if you're in that gap, you're not going to have access to care, or you're less likely to have access to care, and not likely to have insurance. So this is just a few recommendations that I've written about. Um, I think it'd be helpful, looking to continue to push to expand Medicaid in all 50 states, really being intentional about um, working closely with men and listening to men's unique needs, and helping to shape policies and practices and interventions that really help to address the unique challenges that men face but definitely black men face. And so, yes, uh, there've been a plethora of studies that have found that if you meet men where they are in the barbershops and in the churches, and if you meet them where they are, health fairs, um, then you're more likely to have more positive health outcomes. For example, um, over the years, I have helped to plan health fairs that have welcomed at this point perhaps maybe close to 2,000 men, whether that's for like 5K runs, 10K runs, health fairs, town halls, etc. And without fail, there's at least one or two men who would attend that event. They get their blood drawn, they get, their test done to find that they are in diabetic crisis. Like they are experiencing DKA, or um where the blood pressure is 200 something over 100 something, and we have to rush them to the hospital, literally. And it's not, and it's so um this is real, and um it's so important to be able to explore ways in which we can support our men, our fathers, uncles, sons, and others in our families. So I did touch on AI in my article in Health Affairs. I think it'd be um, uh, helpful to consider how to regulate AI, and but also make sure that we're able to use the best data to train the models, to evaluate um, different um, um, different variables that help to shape health outcomes. And so, kind of looking at the a social drivers of health framework, those factors are income, employment, education, transportation, housing, economics. So, really being thoughtful about the ways in which we can use the social drivers of health to help to improve outcomes. And the SDOH framework is what I'm using in my playbook to um, make sure that it is comprehensive in my approach to helping to shape policy at the local, state, and federal levels. Now, of course, there's these challenges we want to be prepared to navigate or to circumvent, um, and especially now, given the current political environment, we don't want to just stop. I like to play the long game. I'm already thinking about midterms next year. I'm already thinking about 2028, at least at the federal level. So, but if we know that these factors are in place, we want to be able to keep building despite where we are politically. Because the pendulum will swing back, and so when it does swing back, you want to be in a position to capitalize on the policy window that will open up because of the shift in the social political landscape. All right, so I have a Substack blog, and I can drop it in the chat. But uh, again, this is I'm happy to um, explore how we can better support our men in our community. That we have to we have to navigate a lot of stigma and lack of education, um, and there's some cultural nuances that we have to navigate. I'm real big on self-care and soul care, and I've been seeing a Black male psychologist for the past several years. I see him at least once a month. I have an executive coach that I see regularly. I'm real big into acupuncture and yoga and the gym, um, journaling, breathwork, meditation, etc. These are things that weren't discussed when I was growing up. Like, yes, my parents were like, they're Christian, and Jesus is fundamentally um, the 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 way to go, but God also created people who have the wisdom and the training to be able to support um, one's health and healing. So I combine Jesus and therapy. I'll say it that way. I'm real big on Jesus and therapy, prayer and therapy, right? So that's how and I'm breaking, you know, stigma, like, uh, and but it's important, and it's important for me to share that as a conscious black male, as an Igbo man, um, you know, it's important to be transparent about my own experiences and hope that others will be inspired to pursue their own growth and development uh and and live their highest quality of life possible. So that is my talk. I look forward to your questions. I'm sure that you all have many, um and we'll go from there. Thank you. Let me stop sharing my.
Thank you so much. That was real. Thank you. Um, I noted a few things. You said it's been shown that men uh,
Yes,
who are married tend to live longer and also um, are healthier.
yes,
I get that right?
yes.
So that's good to know. For all our unmarried men, let me know so I can marry you off. Because I know many women that are not married, and I'm not joking.
Mhm.
It's important to have friendship, but on a more serious note, and that is serious. That was presented. You have just shared personally that you see a psychiatrist, you do yoga, you basically you are taking care of your mental and physical health.
Yeah.
Is a problem that we need to solve in our community. And
Hmm.
Medical Mondays with Dr. O, we seize every opportunity to encourage our people to take good care of their both mental and physical health, especially the mental health. There's a lot of stigma against mental health in our community. Can you speak more to that, please?
Yeah. So there's a lot of socialization and there's some social cultural norms that don't lend themselves to um, people feeling comfortable or confident with seeking help. Um, the society it tends to foster um, there's a lot of shame and like shaming and just this misinformation and disinformation when it comes to um, seeking support. Now, another challenge is actually finding, at least in my case, I was blessed to be able to find a Black male psychologist. Not, I personally wanted someone that shared my background. Um, but uh, it's much more difficult to find a culturally humble therapist that understands where you're coming from. Um, 6% of physicians in the U.S. are Black. 3% of physicians that are male are Black. And it's not much better when it comes to Black psychologists and Black therapists. Um, part of what is helpful is, let's say it is a church context. What I found is that if the pastor or the senior leadership is already into, mental health and therapy, or has a good understanding as to what it means, then it's easier to create a culture and environments and opportunities for people in the congregation to get that type of support. So you kind of take it on a case by case basis. The way that I'm trying to destigmatize and to normalize seeking help is to talk about it. Like, just like be just because um I've in fact I had to navigate perinatal depression. So my son, he is a 20 months old. Um, I I fell into depression postpartum. Uh, and part of it was because I had just submitted my dissertation in August of 2023. My son arrived 6 weeks later. My my mother-in-law had a stroke 5 days after my son was born. Um, and and, and my mother-in-law lives in Rhode Island. So we couldn't, fly to Rhode Island to see my mother-in-law until my wife was able to heal. And so it was a very dark time in our marriage, and while we had the joy of a son, we also had the challenge, or the challenge of trying to support my mother-in-law, who was doing well now in terms of her recovery. So I think it is going to take some level of courage for us as African people who don't necessarily, well, at least in my experience, I didn't, you know, it wasn't discussed in our family. Like, talking about seeking help, going to therapy was not discussed in my family. So I am a curse breaker. I am a trailblazer. Um, I am breaking the stigma by being intentional about discussing the benefits of seeking support. So yeah.
Wow. Thank you. When we talk about postpartum depression, people would automatically think about women.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I said earlier, that we focus on women and children? Nobody looks at the man,
Mm-hmm.
because men are supposed to get it. Thank you so much
Sure.
for being so open and shedding light. I have a therapist, and thank God I had one way back because what I have endured after my husband passed since January 24th from my in-laws has been incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And my therapist has been very, very helpful.
Yeah.
And I have amazing children also who have been helpful. So
That's
it is important to have that community, and it is important to, safeguard our mental health.
mm-hmm.
Otherwise, everything else breaks down.
Yes.
Congratulations on your mother-in-law doing better.
Yes.
God's grace, she will recover completely.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing in Jesus also,
Mm-hmm.
because some people get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I always share with my patients. I have patients who, love the Lord with a passion. And initially, I encounter, some resistance with some of them. And what always comes to my mind and what I share with my patients is the fact that Jesus would just speak the word, and the blind would have their eyes opened. It told the lame to pick up their bed, and they'll do it, and they'll be cured completely. But with one blind man, he spat on the ground, mixed saliva with sand, I mean, in 2025, I'm going to go, yuck, get away from me, right? Put this concussion, this mixture on the man's eyes, and then didn't stop there, told him to go bathe in the pool of Siloam
Hmm.
to get his healing. And then his eyes opened. Every drug we prescribe, or let me say, most drugs we prescribe, is from the soil.
Hmm.
It was an example of medication. Jesus showing us medication is okay. The knowledge we have today as doctors, and thank God I'm one, they're all from God. It's
Hmm.
knowledge God has given us in minuscule form and that we get through research. Thank God you are in research. We rely on people like you, to research these things, and then clinical trials occur
Hmm.
and we start prescribing them. So through research and knowledge increases, we need to get away from this um, notion that we shouldn't take medications. We should not take care of ourselves. We should not, check ourselves out and make sure that we find issues before they become problems
Yes.
because we love God. God
Hmm.
wants us to take care of us. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a words, and I don't, this, I know that this isn't a Bible study, but I'll share one scripture that comes to mind. I think it's in the New Testament. It says that I think it's in maybe First John, where it talks about that um um that it's to wish that being prosperous. So being able to prosper because your soul prospers, right? And so, in fact, let me just pull up the exact scripture because it's important.
While you're doing that, I'll answer a question that was put in the chat box.
Okay.
The questions reads, in what way can men not have high blood pressure?
Yeah, that's a good question. So
Excellent question.
yeah, so I, much of it starts from what we're eating. Um, that is a critical part of health outcomes is what are we ingesting on a regular basis? Um, how much are we moving on a regular basis? To what extent are we incorporating self-care practices into our daily lives? I shared earlier that every morning I pray and I meditate. I do my breath work, journal. You know, those things help to regulate blood pressure. When you're able to, yes, Third John 1,
The one verse
2,
two.
yes. Um, the those things are helpful when it comes to regulating blood pressure. Um, Drinking a lot of water. Now, the issue part of the challenge or the issue is that the experience of racism as a chronic stressor, uh, it weathers blood vessels. It causes um, aging. Um, it 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 accelerates aging. The daily exposure and experience of racial microaggressions and that kills, and it's been well established in the literature the ways in which racism as a chronic stressor constricts blood vessels. Because if you're in a fight state, if you're angry, or in this fight response, or if you're always under some type of pressure, that in a sustained way, that's not healthy for your blood vessels, for your heart, for your body in general. And so, but the good news is that you can counter that and other things by being proactive about one's health. Again, like, and I do it, and I have to hold myself accountable too, right? Is to what am I eating? Um, uh, how am I staying mobile? How am I processing my emotions and my thoughts and decompressing from what's happening around me, right? So it's about taking the time to do those things on the front end, so that um it's less likely for your your blood pressure to be consistently elevated. And so I think, yes, there's also literature out there what some there's there there is there's literature out there that points to uh a minimal genetic component. I'm more of the persuasion that if you are able to take care of yourself in the ways in which has been shown to work, then you're less likely to, or you're better able to handle high blood pressure. I found, and it's interesting because in my experience, whenever I've gone to the doctor, and I go yearly, it's really disappointing because what I found is that the nurses who are taking my blood pressure, they almost expect it to be high. Like, they're actually surprised that it's normal or low. And which says a lot about expectations and the fact that they're used to seeing people that look like me or at my age with a certain level of blood pressure. And I I am blessed to have had models and my parents to help and my wife and others to help me to make better and healthier choices. So,
Wow. Thank you so much. Let me tell you why nurses do that or they're surprised when they see your blood pressure. It is known fact that high blood pressure is very common in Black people,
mhm,
especially Black men. And yes, genes, like you mentioned, um, play a role. However, the lifestyle changes that you are so 100% right on point on um, will prevent men, even and women, from having high blood pressure. I want to go a little bit further to just talk about certain foods that can increase blood pressure. Foods like, eating a lot of salt.
mhm,
Salt will do that. Cheese, dairy products
yeah,
like cheeses and the likes, all dairy can
mhm,
increase blood pressure. Fruits, vegetables will decrease blood pressure. And exercise, like you said, moving, exercise will decrease blood pressure.
mhm,
So fruits, veggies, and exercise are
mhm.
man's friend to decrease blood pressure. Thank God we have a cardiologist on here, and I'm sure he may chime in into this. We have all walks of life here. So lifestyle changes is important. What we put in our body is what we're going to get out.
Mhm.
Obesity is not man's friend.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry I'm using that word straight up tonight. Weight is something that we should avoid. When
Mhm.
you eat right and you're exercising, you would avoid it. In the past, the big tummy, they say, is evidence of good living. Now is evidence of disease. Dr. Izugu, I saw you unmuted and unmuted your camera. Dr. Jagbe, please pardon. Do you have a comment to the
Yeah, sure.
a cardiologist?
I just went to comment
And
Enya
he's
for,
still at work. What time is
yeah,
it?
it is what it is. I wanted to commend Enya for really, touching the untouchable areas of our healthcare, both the politics and the religion and the those areas that really counts, and really underscoring the social determinant of health issues, because that area, the fact that somebody have to worry about even transportation, safety of their home, or safety of their neighborhood, what should they give for their children? These things contribute significantly to blood pressure. And then the psychiatry impact of all of these things really plays a major role.
Hmm.
One thing also that helps with controlling blood pressure is listening to gospel music.
Yes.
you know,
Really?
oh yeah.
I didn't know
Oh,
that.
it really
I
can put
do.
it can put your mind at peace and understand where the powers are, what can help you, and what can, of course, in addition to, if you have blood pressure, you have to take your medicines.
Yes.
You have to understand why you're on the medications. You also understand when if the blood sugar is controlled, you still have to be on the medicines to protect the organs.
Yeah.
So that's very important. But anyway, thank you again for elucidating. And of course, plant-based food, as Dr. O was pointing out, really, really helps a lot. Keeping away from processed foods.
Hmm.
None of this Indomie for the guys in Nigeria. None of this, none of this big man type of what you consider big man food. They're not really good for you. The things that come from the ground that we, have around back home, nice vegetables are really much, much better for you than all of those things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just before we started, Temi was sharing with us that in Ekiti land, you get organic food. So next time you go to Nigeria, consider, getting some organics from Ekiti. They're very important. Even here in the United States, please, let's stay away from the GMOs
Yes.
and all of those things.
Yeah. I want to share that I actually just literally have begun to get into juicing. So that's like a big thing that I'm looking to get into is, juicing, and so just that's just another way in which I'm trying to live the best, quality of life possible.
Juicing is excellent. However, I see people juice and they take all sorts of fruits, whatever fruits you have in your house, dump it in, things like kiwi, blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, apple, all of those. But please add veggie,
Yes. So
like spinach, even if you have bitter leaf,
yes,
you can
yes,
add it. You'll be surprised it won't be bitter.
yes.
Kale.
Kale,
Oh,
yes.
yes, add
Uh-huh.
veggie to
Yes.
that, to that fruit mix.
Absolutely.
Balance things out because the fruit itself is natural sugars.
Mm-hmm.
It's still sugar. It's natural sugars. It's good sugars, but adding that vegetable helps a lot.
Yes.
Before I call on Dr. Jagwe, I just want to go back to the passage. Our writer, I've said it several times on this platform. You want to write a book, you need, we have the best person to assist you on this platform, Mrs. Adiola Atekoja. She was the one who helped us find the passage, um, and it's in 3rd John chapter 1 verse 2. It said, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou may prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospereth." Is that the one you were looking for?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. So
Thank
there's
you.
yeah, there's a direct connection. So, it says that um, you know, the extent to which your soul prospers, soul meaning like your mind, will, and emotions, it impacts your physical health and vice versa. And so I use the word every day. Like the word is medicine. And I think that also has played a critical part in, I think, my overall health and well-being is really using the word as a weapon and as a way to center um the ability for me to not just survive but thrive. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Jagbe, you have the floor. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah. Thank Dr. Enyia.
Yes, sir.
Excellent job. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I wanted to just move us away a little bit to maybe you've already addressed it indirectly, but I wanted us to address the issue of self esteem among men,
Okay.
ego,
Mm-hmm.
anger, and frustration.
Yes.
Because if you look at these four uh, situations, to many men is like, you know, when you have fresh spaghetti, they are parallel, they are easy to separate. But the moment you cook them, when the moment you cook spaghetti and you stir them together, it's difficult to separate one strand from the other. So in many cases, when men combine ego, low self-esteem, anger and frustration, they're bad combination for for anybody, but for men in particular. And that's the reason their stressor will always be up. The cortisol level will always be up, and that creates the fight, fright, or flight mode
Mm-hmm.
that they are always in. And you can see that most of the people that really show road rage are men,
Mm-hmm.
because you have a lot of things going on at the same time, going on in their heads, and you don't even want to know how many buttons are being pushed simultaneously in many of these cases.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I just wanted to bring that up so maybe you can make some comments
Yes.
on this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that up, which is why I mentioned earlier about the soul care and the self-care component is so every morning I do an emotional check-in. I have an emotions wheel with actual words of emotions, and whether it's anger, excitement, sadness. So I have like a wheel, because what I found is that if you can name the emotion, then you can tame it. If you can name the emotion, you're better able to address it. And what we're talking about here is emotional intelligence, having the self-awareness and the capacity to understand what we're feeling and why. And so uh trying to figure out ways to address triggers. And so you mentioned self-esteem, anger, ego, and frustration. So if um you if there was time that is carved out to actually sit with those emotions and understand why you're feeling what you're feeling, um it helps to process those emotions. And so, for example, I use what's called a 5 Ps framework. 5 Ps. The the first P is to pause and breathe. So, like if I'm triggered, if I'm angry, like it's to pause and breathe. The second, and this takes time to like really become automatic, but the second is to pray. Um quickly. Like you don't have to make it all drawn out, but just to give yourself time to just um hopefully begin to bring your emotions down to a place where you're able to process your emotions. And then the other part of it is to practice this approach. So pause, pray, um, process, proceed, and practice. So pause, pray, process, proceed with next steps, and to practice that 5P approach. Um, so I'm real big on journaling, writing down my emotions and asking myself questions. Why am I feeling angry? What are the factors that are shaping why I'm feeling angry? Or if it's in a moment, trying to make every effort to take a deep breath and just pause, right, to reset your nervous system. So it's a combination of things that helps us to increase and improve our emotional intelligence, which impacts other areas of our lives. And so, yeah, just it takes time and effort, but it gets easier to increase your self-awareness about what you're feeling and then being able to channel what you're feeling in healthier ways.
Let me add one more thing to it. Fear.
Okay, yes, fear. Yeah.
Now think about you mentioned something in passing. When there is insecurity in many ways, not just socioeconomic, in ramifications. When there is insecurity, men are likely to become uh, suspicious and overtly uncomfortable around people, and short-tempered and short-fused. So fear of whatever it is causing them to be afraid, whether the possibility of losing their home, possibility of losing their job, possibility of losing their family, possibility of being divorced, all of these things can compound together to make man's health go south. Because all of these things combined together, they don't make for health. Thank you for the 5 P's that you put out there. Until somebody actually becomes self-aware
Mm-hmm.
of who they really are and who they wish to be, and how they can reduce the gap between the two, it's going to be difficult. The principles you are bringing out may work for you, but it will not work for a lot of people, because once they don't even know who they are, they don't know what they want. Everybody is telling them what they should do, what their mates are doing that they are not doing. Those are things that cannot make a man to truly function. I'm not making excuses, but I'm just saying from my own observation, it, it could become a really big time bomb for most men that are experiencing such complicated lifestyle.
Sure. And my response to that is to say that everyone's journey is different, and
Hmm.
it's important to find out what works best for you.
Yeah,
And it's not healthy to compare yourself to other people. Uh,
right. Hmm.
for me, it's been about how do I figure out what will work for me given um how far I've come. Um, I say all the time that, and my mentor says this. He says, in the context of community, you can't be your best self by yourself, right? You can't be your best self by yourself. It takes community. It takes, as you know, a tribe. It takes a board of advisors, a dream team, your people, right? To be able to have the support and the encouragement and the models um, to glean from to see what you feel that will work for you. And so, yeah, I'm real quick to say that everyone's journey is different. Now, what I've found when I share my own, regimen, a lot of people say that that's a lot. Like you're doing a whole. I'm like, well, this is how I'm wired. This is what I know works for me. And I'm on, and I have a certain spiritual diet. I have a certain way, you know, I'm on assignments. And because I am purpose driven and I'm on assignments, there's a certain diet that I have to consume to be able to move like I've been called to move. Like Daniel in the Bible. Daniel didn't compromise his values, right? He didn't eat the king's food. And he had a spirit of excellence. He prayed 3 times a day. Daniel had uh, a daily office that he went to 3 times a day to pray. And I'm sure he did a lot more than that, but his he's a model for us. He is a metaphor for us in terms of the intentionality that it takes for us to figure out what will work best for us. Now, as people of faith, it is fundamentally about taking this to prayer, like asking the Lord, what out of all of this content, this information, these resources, these people, um, help me understand what will work best for me and why. Um, and so I think that gets to your point about being clear about who and whose you are to determine what will work best for you.
Yeah, and I think lastly, Thanksgiving is should be one of those things that helps.
Yes.
I love to be, I have an attitude of gratitude. That's for me. I'm always very grateful. I don't care what the circumstances are. My approach is always to be thankful.
Mm-hmm.
Giving thanks, even when I don't fully understand why things happen the way they have happened, but I give thanks from my heart. And
Yes.
that makes me to see things in different light. Rather
Yes.
than feeling so frustrated, rather than feeling like life is hopeless or helpless, I see, light even at the end of the tunnel just by being thankful. Thank you
Yes.
for letting me share. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Wale Promo, kindly unmute. I saw your hand. So we allow those who raise their hands to speak first. If there's nobody or we've taken all of those, then we go to the chat box. So Wale Promo, um, when you're ready,
Okay. Thank
go
you,
ahead.
Ma. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Doctor.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. I greet all my daddies and my mommy and doctors in the house. So actually, what I appreciate this forum for the enlightenment and the teaching to educate some of women also. And I appreciate my daddy C. I think I saw their name CXI.
Yeah, Dr. Ajagbe.
Okay, doctor. Yeah, doctor. Sorry. I appreciate because part of the point I wanted to lay emphasis, he really spoke majority of it. Like, and another thing I wanted to add is that if the men can stand for men this day, I think it will help us to be a better person because, like what my doctor said, that a lot of men are going through a lot of challenges, even though we're in the marriage, in terms of business. Maybe women, we have a focus and we have a target. Oh, this is our target. But immediately that target was not met and the family issued, men carries a lot of load on their head. And I think part of the thing that make a shorter life for men, because before we think of ourselves, we think of millions of people. You think about the family, the business, and at times when men have some project to do, hardly hardly you see a man that will assist. But if a woman have a project to do, or a woman approach a man for a project, the man will support it. But when men approach a man for support, they be giving story, blah blah blah. All these things have a disadvantage in some, discourage so many men that lead them to frustration, and some let's say they are business partner, the business is not working, the profit is not being straightforward to share, so and frustrated so many men. So why am I saying this? That if there should be a forum that men can assist men, that men can stand for men. So that's just my own little contribution. Thank you, my doctors.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing from the heart, and that is so true. Dr. Enyia, your comment, please, on
Yeah,
that. It is true. It is real. What you just shared.
absolutely. Absolutely. I've had the blessing of having mentors and advisors, and men in my life that have literally helped to keep me grounded and sane. Um, I mentioned earlier that, my son, so w- when my wife was pregnant, I was very intentional about galvanizing what I framed as a fatherhood dream team, of men who were fathers with children at different ages, um, so that I could begin to be more intentional about hearing from them their successes, their challenges, their wisdom, their insights, um, and these are men that I felt that I could trust and be open with. And so I was very intentional, and you know I realized that, so I'm a member of a different of a few different fraternities, and so that does help me to be able to be connected to other men who I can glean from. And yes, it is rare to have safe, non-judgmental spaces for men to just be, to just talk, not be judged, not be shamed, but just to be. But that's part of what drives my work, is to destigmatize, to hold space for us as men to talk, to vent, to get affirmed. And so, my hope is that um, that the work that I'm going to be leading will further facilitate the opportunities for more men to have communities where they can go to on a regular basis, to just be, to share. So yes, and it's it's very, very challenging because it's just rare to find safe spaces for men to just be, but those spaces are out there. Um, and so, I'm happy to share some of my, I have a few resources that I can share, that where there are some communities of men. But I also know that there is a cultural component to this. It's easier. It tends to be easier if you're able to connect with men that share your subculture, or your culture. So I get that. Um, but even in this space right here, it's critically important to have these conversations. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Is it possible to start such a community, a culture here that is just for men, like a forum where men to men can vent or share frustrations, fears, anger, and see, others on the platform will be able to, interject and help from experience and all. Is it possible to do that?
Sure. I mean, it's
I'll
um
assist you.
so
I'll assist you in forming that because that was what he proposed. That was what he said. You can tell that, and I know that it's possible that a lot of men would want that community, that environment, um, to be able to just share what they would not ordinarily share
yeah.
in the community of others like women present,
Hmm.
so to say, you know?
Sure. Yeah, I'm part of a few men's communities, and I'm trying to track down some of the contact information that, and I'll try to drop it in the chat, and if not, I can share with you offline, if I can get to it. But
That'll be fantastic.
yeah.
There's no need reinventing the wheel except
Mm-hmm.
for that cultural detail or cultural segment to that, because culture is very important. And yes, there are things that we all share in common. There are things that separate us also in a way because of culture.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned that was why I asked if it's possible to start a community of, men, same culture, similar experiences, may not even be similar experiences, but that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Because iron can then sharpen iron.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll talk more about it offline and throw it out there for people who may want to join. They can join through a link themselves. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was deep. In Nkechi, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I do.
Welcome.
Good evening. Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Please, I owe you
Uh,
phone calls.
yeah, yeah. Good evening, everyone. I do strongly agree that there should be a forum for this kind of thing now where men can share, especially men from our culture, to talk about things and also learn from the older men how to do things and open up without being in the midst of women. So it's going to be a very, very good thing if such a thing could happen. Because when you're talking about group, you're talking about group in terms of men that will not have that culture shock, um, because they have other tribes in that group. But if it happens to be all black men and older men having younger men, money, mentoring them and sharing their life story with them, they learn from it. Because we all come to this group to learn from each other and learn from whatever anyone the speaker comes to talk about, and then we take that back home and then start making changes. I think it was going to be a very good idea if Dr. O and the speaker for today could do such a thing. And thank you, sir, for speaking today. What a great job, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Pastor Paul, kindly unmute.
Thank you, Dr. Thank
Welcome,
you,
sir.
Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Very empowering presentation. Really, I consider this a blessing in itself that you've been able to highlight and articulate very powerfully all that you've been able to share with us. Empowering. I'd like to refer back to the statement you made earlier regarding the prostate cancer, whereby you said 1 in 5 is that new diagnosis, and also that the history is 1 in 4. Can you explain as to why this is what it is in terms of 1 in 4, in terms of the history?
Yeah, I just dropped in the chat an article to that actually speaks to that issue. So it prostate cancer is one of the, if caught early, it is one of the easier cancers to treat. And in fact, let me actually just pull up that data point that I mentioned earlier because I saw it earlier. Let me see. Yeah. So 1 in 4 Black men will get prostate cancer. That's double the risk of other men. As a Black man, you're also more likely to get prostate cancer if you're 45 and over. And of course, as you get older, the risk increases. And so, yeah, so it's, you know, it's either 1 in 4 or 1 in 5. It just depends on the source, but you can guarantee, based upon the data. So, for example, in this room right now, and I don't know how many people are here, maybe about 30 people. I don't know how many men are in this this particular room right now, but you can count, like, out of the 53 people, if half are men, just count off, every fourth person is more likely to get prostate cancer in their lifetime as a black man. Obviously it's not as stark for white men, but that is what all the data is telling us.
You are muted, sir.
Yeah, I might have misunderstood what you are referring to as the historical factor. Yeah,
Okay.
which is what I thought I'm trying to understand as to the historical factor compared to the new diagnosis itself. Is there any difference in that?
Oh, so it sounds like you're asking a question of incidence compared to prevalence.
That is correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to drop this in the chat here as well. Um, so when we talk about um, getting prostate cancer, the incidence is, 1 in 4 black men will get prostate cancer. So that's the incidence.
Okay.
Yes. Um, whereas the it is whereas prostate cancer is more prevalent amongst black men than white men, for example. Um, and I'm I'm pulling some data here to drop in the chat. And so, for example, prostate cancer incidence among black men in the U.S. is 60% higher, and and mortality is more than double the rate observed in white men. Now, again, this is from a 2017 study at the NIH, but I think I think the broader takeaway is that there is a huge disparity between black men and white men, and it's so important to have the most up-to-date information to help drive the urgency behind why it's important to get your prostate checked on a regular basis. And so, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Sure.
So there's a question. What role does mental health play in Black men's overall well-being?
Well, as was discussed earlier, it plays a critical role. If you're not healthy mentally, it impacts every other area of your life. I would argue. And so, um, what tends to happen is that the way in which mental health is discussed, is uh, is socialized. It's not treated at the same level as a physical health issue. In fact, there have been pieces of legislation in 2016. I actually helped to draft what's called the 21st Century Cures Act that actually called out the critical importance of supporting and or treating mental health on par with physical health, which spoke to the broader narrative around the disparities between mental health and physical health. And so, um, my experience, and I think what can also be born from the literature, is that if you're able to get your mind right, then other things follow. There's because most of us, I think, we're all Christian in the space. Um, there's the Romans 12 and 2, where Paul says that uh, to not be conformed by the world, but to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I would say that as you're able to help process your emotions and your thoughts, that translates into better physical health outcomes, because we're not made as distinct, disparate beings. We're all connected, and so the extent to which you're able to be proactive about your mental health helps to get you better prepared to address any physical health issues. So yeah, that's how I would answer that question.
Thank you. Wow, thank you. You're right. In my opinion, you're right. Counselor, Sister Rosemary, kindly
Good,
mute.
good evening, Dr. O. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I just want to add something to what you have said. We human beings, we are made up of spirit, soul, and body. And your soul consists of your mind, will, and emotion. And we are biopsychosocial spiritual beings. The social and the spiritual one is very, very important. And we tend to neglect that. So to buttress on what you have said before, I'm going to refer us to Philippians 4, verse 8. It says, brethren, whatsoever is true, whatsoever is honest, whatsoever is just, whatsoever is pure, whatsoever is lovely, whatsoever is of good report, if there's any praise, if there's any virtue, think on these things. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, shall keep your hearts and your mind. So we have to guard our heart with all diligence. That's Proverbs, 4 verse 23. He said, because out of it are issues of life. But we human beings, we just allow ourselves to, we allow ourselves to think about so many things and get involved in so many things, thinking that these things are not going to affect us. It will affect you. There is a parable in Benin that says that you use your mind for longevity. Your mind is your longevity. So everything comes from the mind. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. You will be and become the way you think, feel, and believe about yourself. So you talked about self-esteem. Dr. Ajagbe talked about self-esteem. Self-esteem is your self-image based on system of values, memories, and feelings that you have put together about yourself. And the Bible also says that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So you will be and become the way you think, feel, and believe about yourself. So all these things affect you as a human being. So let us just be mindful of what we think about, because whatever you think about, you bring about. So we are constantly thinking about one thing or the other. What are you constantly thinking about? Those things are going to affect you. So we have to become very intentional about thinking about what we want to bring into present in our lives. And your perception about whatever thing anybody says or whatever thing that happens around you becomes your reality. So we gotta pay attention to these things. All these things affect you. You know, I mean, I've gone through a lot in my life. I had somebody that lived with me for so many years, about 10 years. That person doesn't talk to me today. So what? I am not going to lose my peace because of you. Because if I do that, that person is controlling you, and these things will affect you. It affect your health. So let us become very mindful and just take things gently and become friends with ourselves. Let us learn, because the very first commandment in the Bible says, love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your spirit, with all your being. And then the second is like unto the first, love the neighbor as yourself, which means you have to love yourself before you can love your neighbor, because you cannot give anybody what you don't have. And if you think about what love is patient, love is kind, love suffereth long and is kind. So in the midst of you going through that stress, going through whatever thing you're going through, you can still be kind to yourself. And love does not envy, it doesn't envy, it doesn't judge, it doesn't seek its own, it's not easily provoked, it keeps no record of wrong. It believes all things, it endures all things. It's love never fails. So if we know that that's how God loves us, why can't we give those things to ourselves? You can have everything in this world. If you don't love yourself, there's no way you can move forward in life. So let us be mindful of what we do and know that whatever we avail ourselves to affects us one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Isn't it awesome to have counselors also on the platform?
Yes.
I just got my dose. I don't know about you. We just had a great counseling session. Thank you so much, Sister
My
Rosemary.
pleasure.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Dr. Enyia just wrote in the chat box that Black male are 1.7 times more likely to be diagnosed with and 2.1 times more likely to die from prostate cancer than white men. Black men are also slightly more likely than white men to be diagnosed with advanced disease. And that is true. That is on point. The unfortunate thing is, the new standards is that we don't routinely check the prostate specific antigen, which is a blood test that we use to check the prostate, the PSA. I don't remember the last time I stuck my finger into a man's rectum to check the prostate. We have stopped doing that years ago, unless it is necessary, unless there is a concern, there is a complaint. So what I would advise our men on the platform is when you're having your annual physical exam, ask your physician to add the PSA. That's the prostate specific antigen. If you ask, we'll add it.
Yeah.
It is no more standard of care that we used to add automatically. But if you ask, it'll be added. So please always ask that you want your PSA checked. Thank you so much. This has been very, very awesome. Before I ask you to please give us your parting words for tonight, I want to share something very, very special. I get excited about our community and the brains that God has given us in our community. Tonight on this platform, we have an amazing young man, Temi. I call him Temi fondly. His name is Temi Kayode, and he has an amazing event coming up that every one of us, all hands on deck, need to be there, especially people in the DMV area. Californians, buy your ticket. Chicagoans, buy your ticket. Temi, kindly unmute and share this with us before Dr. Enyia gives us his closing remarks, his parting words to assist us. Temi, are you there?
Yes, Mom, I'm here. Thank you so much,
Fantastic.
doctors, and my daddies, mommies, aunties, and brother, my friends and family in the platform. This is really a great platform, very informative. I think personally, I have been missing so much because I have not been, being here. So thank you so much for the opportunity, Dr. Ho. African Cultural Fashion Heritage is a platform curated for the community. Curated for the communities in the sense that many at times we Blacks or Africans don't have enough platform for all our young adults who are passionate about fashion designing, model, our artisans, and so on. So that is where Temitope Kayode, now I saw the loophole that our African fashion and African industry is going on the hill. It is true that we have very good, great designs, in Africa, and we see a whole lot of them on the Instagram. So how many of these designs are on the mainstream? Just like Chinese people and Indians, Turkish, and all of these people, they now started printing our Ankara Adira Shoke with their machines, and they make it much easily accessible on the mainstream. So, and a whole lot of blacks, pastors, and blacks in general and Africans are behind them. But the difference between them is that the quality is totally different from our own handmade. So, because I have the opportunity as an e-commerce guru from where I work. So I was able to push our African designs because I own two different African clothing line. I'm so sorry for taking a little bit of your time. I'm just giving a little background about what I do. So, my clothing line is Temi Collection, Temi Collection, collection.com, and the other one is Krabi Clothing. So the idea behind two major clothing line, which has to do with African clothing, is to make African clothing, our original clothing, attire, to be easily accessible to anyone in the world, regardless where they live. So I can also compete with the Chinese people that came to Africa to steal our printing, our Oshoki, Ankara, and Adire, because they started printing those things with their machines. So I can also um, compete with them. And because in Africa, we don't have no proper intellectual property law that guides our product. So that is it. So with the African Cultural Fashion Heritage, this is our fourth year. The 4.0 is a platform that brings all Africans from all walks of backgrounds each year, that everyone will dress elegantly, promoting our own fabrics, prints, and is giving a whole lot of our young adults, African American, blacks, African children, a platform. If any of you have the opportunity to come for the event this Friday, you will see them on the runway, and I'm very sure you'll be proud what they will be doing. On my own collection alone, I have 23 of them that will be on the runway. And also is a platform that empowers them, that gives them that expression for what they really love to do or what they really want to become. With that, we also have our local fashion designer that some of us might in the DMV might not even know about. About 5 of them will also be on the runway this year. So it's not just going to be a Temi collection. So every one of you that are supporting us, you are not just supporting Temi collection, you are actually empowering our Black model, our artisans who have a great handmade product. They don't have a platform to showcase them. So this platform is bringing, the event is bringing all of us together. So we have vendors that will be coming to sell their product, to showcase their services and all that. And also we have an award to award our community leaders who has been impacting our communities for good. We are going to award them that day too. So it's full of different tuning segment that all of you will be proud of what we are doing. So you are supporting and you are empowering us and empowering our young adults. Thank you so much for this opportunity. The flyers they are on the charts, please. So in case you wanna be part of it or support us, please let me know. My name is Temi Topekayode. God bless you all.
Temi, thank you so much. You wonder why I asked Temi to come. It is important, very important, that we support each other and especially our young ones. These are huge things. Talk has been going on around about our products, our things being used against us. And I don't want to go into the details of that because that's not the subject tonight. Maybe we can talk about that on Medical Monday sometime. But this is a young man who has filled the void in a huge part of our lives when it comes to our cultural, fabrics, clothing, fashion, and stuff like that. This is a lot. He said just some in a nutshell. And thank you. I appreciate the time you took so that you can explain this. I have reposted the flyers on here, and I will send them to your emails and text messages after tonight's event. It's on Friday. Let's come together and support these young ones. Let's make this an amazing time together. Thank you. And oh, by the way, our Californians, my sister in California says, Temi, look forward to your online address as they are in California. Please consider sharing your event virtually. So please think about that so that we can send out the virtual link maybe at least 24 hours before so that they can participate. And please look in the chat box and you will see Temi is posting, how you can get your tickets, VIP options. There are different options. You want to sit in that VIP place, please come. This is about supporting our culture, increasing us. This is what Dr. Enyia has talked about when, Wale Promo talked about a community of men. Dr. Enyia actually posted a community of men that I saw in the platform. I think it's about cancer, right?
Yes.
Zerocancer.org, Black men. That's a great one to join. All men on the platform. Just click on it and it will take you to the link to be able to join. But it talked immediately about culture, that we need to consider, culture also, because when there are cultural differences and the needs may not be completely met. And this is where we are. This is just right on time that you see what Temi just shared with us about the cultural show, where this is our culture, this is us, to move us further, to move us, a little bit more ahead. So thank you so much, Temi, for all you and everyone else that are helping you with the heavy lifting are doing. We look forward to seeing you on Friday. And I know our Medical Mondays family, I know this family will be supportive. Thank you, everyone. So, Dr. Enyia, I thought maybe I was going to give you a break, but there's a question in the chat box, and it's very important.
Yeah.
It says, is there a difference in prostate enlargement and prostate cancer? Also, do biopsy of the prostate change or facilitate the development of prostate cancer from prostate enlargement when there's none?
Yeah, those are great questions. So, and my reply in the chat was that an enlarged prostate does not necessarily mean that one has prostate cancer. There's what's called benign prostatic hyperplasia, meaning that the prostate tissue is enlarged, but it could just be from an infection, or but it's not. One can't assume that it is prostate cancer because the prostate is enlarged, which is why you do the biopsy to get to confirm if in fact the prostate is cancerous or not. So the sooner that the prostate is checked via a biopsy or PSA or a disc rectal exam, that gives you data to be able to determine um, more definitively if what is happening with the prostate is either benign or malignant. So now the second part of your question, so be, doing a biopsy does not um, facilitate the development of prostate cancer. The biopsy is a procedure that's done to actually determine what types of cells are in the prostate, whether they are cancerous or not. So hopefully that answers those questions. And if you have more questions, I did drop in the chat earlier on some really good resources that we'll be able to answer your questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, because your question is right on point. Oh, so I say your questions, your answers. I agree. I agree with you. Doing a biopsy does not cause cancer.
Right.
It won't cause it. That's information that I've heard over and over again, and it is just not true.
Yeah.
So, again, before I revert back to you again, Temi has posted his phone number in case you have questions, and it's Friday, this Friday. It's very exciting. It's great because after work, you can just come relax over there, and let's enjoy each other. I look forward to seeing you. And without much ado, Dr. Enyia, kindly give us your parting words, your parting advice.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. Let me drop so I have a new blog that because June is Men's Health Month is mainly focused on men's health, but as the year goes by, I'll be writing based upon what might be going on in Congress or in policy and health in general. So I did want to ask you all to subscribe to my blog. I'm going to drop it again here, and feel free to share it with your colleagues. So that's that. Um, Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share some of my work. It's been a blessing to have a space where I can actually discuss the spiritual with the natural. My experience is that is rare, or it's not. It doesn't happen a lot, and so to have the opportunity to combine both in this setting is a huge blessing.
That's a good tagline, spiritual with natural. You go.
Yes. And so I my 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 brand is framed as where purpose meets policy. Where purpose meets policy, and that encapsulates who I have become, and what I stand for. And so my hope is that something was shared this evening that was enlightening, that was timely, and that you all were encouraged by this. And I hope to be able to continue to serve as a resource as much as I can, you know, um, you know, and keep going. So, thank you so much for this opportunity. Our health is our wealth. Um, Blessings to everyone here. Look forward to being able to join more of these as things evolve in the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And we'll be calling on you again. Hey, I had that part, you know, and I remember pause, pray, process, proceed, and practice all
Mhm.
of those. Thank you. The 5 Ps. Um, God bless you. Thank you. Our men are so important to me that, I mean, your presentation just excited me. And I pray that it has touched every man and even women on this platform tonight. Thank you. I want to ask a favor. That link that you sent in there,
Mhm.
the best I can do for me is click on it and it will go on my laptop. If you please send it to me so I can
Okay.
share with the family, with the Medical Mondays family.
Sure.
Just get everyone to get into that link, so that we can follow you. We want to know what is going on. We
Yeah.
want to, we look. This platform is a very educated platform, and we want to know. So I'll send it to everyone personally so that they can just click on it and it makes it easier
Okay.
for people like me to
Yeah.
just
Good.
sit on our phone. And my sister in London is up, believe it or not. She said she was just thinking, well said, at spiritual and natural when Madam Madam VP, that's actually our mama at NAPAC from California.
Okay.
She voiced that
Oh, great. Thank
that
you.
on
Yes,
point.
absolutely.
Thank you. See, like minds. Thank you
Yes.
so much, everyone. You know what? Every single one here, we just appreciate you. God bless you all. And look towards my text message tonight to get to follow Dr. Enyia so we can know what is going on all around us with policy and all of that. And also look forward tonight to Temi collection to the, Cultural Day, African Cultural Fashion Heritage Program. I'm not sure there'll be a virtual part of this. I'm not. But for everyone in the DMV area, also up to Delaware, Pennsylvania, please let's come together and hang out. Let's use this opportunity to hang out. Don't let's be hanging out when something bad happens. These are times that we need to come and celebrate each other and uplift each other. So I look forward to seeing you. Until we see again next week, please stay safe. COVID is still raging. Keep safe.